This week, we welcome Kevin Nolten, Director of Academic Outreach from Cyber.org, to discuss why cyber education is the key to solving the skills gap. In the Leadership and Communications section, the SEC is serious about cybersecurity. Is your company? CISO urges organizations to avoid bad security practices. IT leaders facing backlash from remote workers over cybersecurity measures and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Cyber risk and compliance automation is finally here. Legacy GRC systems cannot support the powerful, real-time automation and oversight that organizations require to take risks that matter to succeed. CyberSync continuous control automation ingests data from the IT GRC stack to update controls against regulatory requirements and risks in real time, delivering insights and visibility. See how members of the Fortune 500 are saving millions annually by visiting securityweekly.com/cybersync. Every 11 seconds, there's a new ransomware attack. Oil pipelines, universities, corporations, all paying millions of dollars. Barracuda says, don't pay the ransom. Before a ransomware attack occurs, train your teams to recognize an attack and use anti-phishing technology. Protect your applications, and they can't get onto your network. Simple backup and restore solutions quickly recover your data without paying the ransom. Build your ransomware protection plan now by visiting securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda.
Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 231, recorded September 13th, 2021. I am your host, Matt Alderman, here in Colorado. Yes, it's fall, and it's football season again. We had that brief conversation before the show. Joining remotely are my co-hosts. First, Mr. Jason Albuquerque. Welcome, Jason.
Hey there, Matt. It's been a little while. Since the last time I've been on, we've had a hurricane. I went on PTO. There's a little holiday in between. It's great to be back and great to be in football season again.
Yeah, it is. We missed you, Jason, by the way. My second co-host is brand new. You actually saw an interview with him a couple of weeks ago. Mr. Ben Carr is my new co-host. Welcome, Ben.
Matt, so glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, looking really forward to participating and co-hosting Business Security Weekly with you guys.
Yeah, this is going to be great. Now I have a couple active kind of CISOs on the show to kind of augment my brain around some of these topics. It's great to have you on. We wanted to free up some time for Adrian to continue to focus on some of the work he's doing with labs and Enterprise Security Weekly. And Ben, you and I have worked together for a long time, known each other even longer. So it's great.
Go back quite a bit.
Yeah, we do. InfoSec World 2021 is proud to announce its keynote lineup for this year's event. Hear from Robert Herjavec, plus heads of security at the NFL, TikTok, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Stanford University, and more. Plus, Security Weekly listeners save 20% on World Pass and main conference registration. Visit securityweekly.com/ISW 2021 to register now. Do you want to stay in the loop on all things Security Weekly? Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher or our YouTube channel. Sign up for our mailing list, join our Discord server, and follow us on our newest live streaming platform, Twitch. As the executive director of Cyber.org, Kevin directs the organization's programmatic outreach efforts and partnerships with the goals of ensuring that every K-12 student in the U.S. has access to cybersecurity education. In his role, he helps advance Cyber.org's K-12 cyber education program with age-appropriate content that aligns with state standards for education in 27 states and counting. With a background in K-12 administration, Kevin finds special meaning in cyber education and the impact it has directly on students' futures. Kevin, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Matt, it's such a great honor to be with you today, and looking forward to the great dialogue we have in front of us.
Yeah, well, I interviewed you on Paul Security Weekly back in April. I looked it up today. It's been 5 months. You came on Paul Security Weekly and gave us a really nice overview of cyber.org. I think here I want to take the conversation a slightly different direction because I want to talk about how we as a community can engage and help to solve what we know is a skills gap in our industry. But before we get there, give us a little background and history on cyber.org for the audience who doesn't know who you are.
Absolutely, Matt. Cyber.org is ultimately a workforce and economic development engine, and that we like to use the resources that we provide communities, specifically K-12 institutions, with resources that they can begin educating the next generation cyber workforce. How do we do that? We have a federal grant from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and its Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency to develop K-12 cybersecurity curriculum and resources, to offer professional development on that curriculum, and to do consulting work with state agencies to build out cyber education plans for their state. And we get to do this with our funding and provide these resources at no cost to educators, to school districts, to state departments of education. And as I'll mention today, I'll talk about how organizations, both from an industry and government perspective, can leverage what has already been created by cyber.org and use it to their advantage to ensure that they, A, have a skilled workforce pipeline that's coming into their organization, but they also have the availability and access of resources to prevent cybersecurity attacks from within their organization.
Yeah, this is what got me really excited is thinking about all the great curriculum you've created. We know we've talked about it on this show, and Jason can probably run this whole interview without me because he gets so involved in Rhode Island on this topic. Is that we know we have to bring cyber education earlier into the curriculum. We can't wait until college. We got to bring it into our high schools, our middle schools, even all the way down to elementary we've talked about. And I think what's great about cyber.org is you've created curriculum across all those grade levels.
That's correct. We see, and research has shown, that students at the 6th or 7th grade, that is when they are making informed decisions about what they want to be when they grow up. And as a former educator, I was an assistant principal of a K-8 school. I made it a top priority that at the middle school level, we're starting to introduce students to not only the jobs that they may know about, but what are we doing to introduce those students to jobs that they don't know about? And that was key for me and my teachers, was to ensure that we are really drilling down on introducing those students at an early age about the opportunities and what the workforce looks like tomorrow.
Yeah, Kevin, I am so excited about this interview. When I saw you were going to be on board, one of the first things I said is I need to go offline and start collaborating with you. Because, like Matt mentioned, here in Rhode Island, I'm heavily involved. You know, I've always had that that stance that we can't sit back as cybersecurity professionals and just talk about the skills gap and talk about not having the talent available. Mm-hmm. It's up to us to put some skin in the game to help change that, right? So here in Rhode Island, I sit on the CTE board for the Rhode Island Department of Education. I sit on the Governor's Transition Committee for Workforce and Education, K through 12 education. I'm working with the superintendents in probably 70% of the districts right now on how to change the curriculum for their computer science and education pathways that they have here in the state, and really bringing that industry viewpoint. Now, to know that your organization can come into a state like Rhode Island and help us build out that curriculum and take some of that overhead off the plate of the educator, that's such a huge value add to our state. I couldn't agree with you more about trying to look at aptitude in 6th and 7th grade and really start guiding students toward their strengths and their passions. So by the time they're in high school, they can choose a direction, choose a pathway, and really have that have that level of pathway that they can follow to make them successful. And in the conversations that we're having at the Department of Ed perspective is not only setting students up for success for higher ed, but make them workforce ready in 12th grade if they're not built for higher ed. Because that's an important aspect as well. For so long, we've been focused on simply getting kids ready for college. Well, I wasn't ready for college at 12th grade. I went into the military. And that's the only reason I knew I had an aptitude for technology is because I took the ASVAB test. How do we change that, right? And this is a perfect program. What you're running here at cyber.org, I think aligns so well with some of what we're doing here in Rhode Island. We definitely have to talk.
I think one of the important points, and you make this right here, is that whose problem is it? And I think we have grappled with that question for the past 10 years as it relates to cybersecurity. And early on, 10 years ago, that question was answered by higher education. But when you look at how new cybersecurity is to our digital age, we look at the advancement of technology and how CISOs are now a part of the C-suite within organizations. They're getting the attention that they well deserve and they've needed for the past 20 years. But you think about over the last 10 years, we have gone from just higher education being the solution, quote unquote, for this problem to everybody being a piece of the solution for this. This is where K-12 education has opened their eyes, because who feeds higher education institutions? It's K-12. And so if the workforce needs a cyber literate population, then we have to reverse engineer this problem. And it's not only the higher ed problem, but it's also K-12 problem. It's not only those two individuals, but we also have to talk about what is industry's involvement in ensuring that we have a workforce. What is our state governments, from the Department of Education to the Department of Labor to the Department of Energy, et cetera, et cetera. I think this problem is a holistic issue that requires a holistic solution.
Agreed.
Yeah,
And one other aspect, Kevin, that I want to throw out there, because we just recently did this for the Providence school system, engagement of parents. We actually brought parents in to have a presentation for them to talk about cybersecurity and what the future could be for their children, because their support is imperative for this as well, because they help guide the conversation on their children's future and where they're going to be after 12th grade and higher ed. The parents are a key piece to this, educating parents on what's out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's super important that you do this early. I mean, if you think about it from, where you're engaging, you guys have both talked about the fact that, it's not necessarily a higher ed problem. I think the engagement has to happen at a young level. The positivity of image around a career path in this, and, things change so quickly in this industry. I mean, I'm talking tomorrow up in Seattle, and this is part of my talk, is that, the speed of transformation that we've seen, in the last 5 years, just move to cloud and everything going over around COVID, that change is requiring even in cyber, a different set of talent than we've traditionally found. And so I think it's critically important. I love the fact that you're addressing this K through 12. I mean, as early as possible to get this opportunity in front of the kids, and then have them look at a potential career path where it's going to solve that gap. I mean, I think that's fantastic.
When you look at our job shortage of today, and you see that we've got 500,000 plus cybersecurity jobs that are opening today, it is my opinion, and I think I have some significant evidence to back this up, that our workforce gap today is because of our lack of attention to STEM education 10, 15, 20 years ago. Think about that. Mm-hmm. If we do not begin solving this from a beginning of the pipeline perspective, we're going to be in a world of hurt 15, 20 years from now. This is not a fly-by-night program. This is a national security issue and a national security solution that we have to invest in today, that we're going to see returns on 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Yeah. So, Kevin, let's talk about some solutions here, because you've got a great case study out of the state of North Dakota. You've got Jason ready to bring you into Rhode Island. But let's start talking about, how do we start to solve this at the education level?
Definitely. one of the great success stories that I love sharing is what took place in North Dakota. North Dakota, 4 to 5 years ago, took a stance in saying that they wanted to begin educating the next generation cyber workforce. And you look at the economic makeup of North Dakota, and one might have scratched their head to say, what does North Dakota have to do with cybersecurity? They took a stance that cybersecurity has implications across all industry, whether that's agriculture, whether that's healthcare, whether that's military or Department of Defense, oil and gas, whatever that industry may be. They took the stance that cybersecurity plays a role in that, and their CIO, Sean Riley, and if you haven't had a chance to take a look at Sean's success stories and what he, as well as the governor and the superintendent of education, Kirsten Baszler, have done, it's a phenomenal story, and it's an investment that was made by the CIO, the CISO, and stakeholders within state government to create a momentous push for higher education institutions, industry, government, and K-12 to sit around a table and to create a set of solutions that will generate a population of cyber literate students, and that will be feeding the workforce. It was the CIO and the CISO that really drove home the importance that internships and apprenticeships, how important those aspects of the education pipeline is to ensuring that students are going into work roles that they may not even know about. It's important to note that that CIO, Sean Riley, enforced through the legislature that technology must be taught inside the classroom at the higher ed and K-12 institutions. Now, North Dakota, while it is a state government that made this push, I think the successes can be replicated within private industry and within small businesses. It is the success story and it is the playbook that these individuals and these organizations can take and reevaluate what they are doing from a corporate and social outreach perspective, what they are doing to engage in the community that they are in and the workforce pool that they attract.
Yeah, it's a great playbook. Jason, obviously you've got a lot of pieces that Kevin and the team have already built that could really help, enable this program. But I think it's also up to us as the industry and the community to say, how can we leverage what cyber.org has done and help, 100%. Right? You have taken major steps in promoting cybersecurity education in the state of Rhode Island. I'd like to see the rest of the community also figure out how can they help push some of this stuff forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? And I think having cyber.org as a tool that can help us from the education perspective, because some of the things we run into from an industry side of the aisle is we'll get some roadblocks that'll say, listen, you're not educators, you don't know pedagogy, you don't know how to implement curriculum and build curriculum. And then we sit back and we say, listen, we want to be one can create this shared vision for, a cybersecurity program across K through 12 in our state. And once you start opening that up, I think it breaks down some of those walls. And as we started, building those relationships, you could feel the collaboration start to build, right? Ultimately, I do feel that it's a shared vision and a shared responsibility across all of those stakeholders that we mentioned earlier. And if we can be the catalyst as folks in industry to make that happen and start connecting people together, connecting the superintendents and the commissioners of K through 12, connecting higher ed and maybe the presidents of some of the state universities, having the state government support it because they have educational funds and workforce development funds that we can take advantage of to help bring, and not to mention charter schools. Charter schools are part of this as well, and some of those have state funding to help keep those charter schools running. But honestly, we have to start bringing all of the stakeholders together to be successful. Parents as well. I cannot highlight that enough. Parents need to be supportive. They need to know what's out there. But here's the struggle, and here's where I think cyber.org is going to help us. We're at a point now in Rhode Island where we're talking about what the curriculum should look like. Well, guess what? Kevin, I'm reaching out because you know what the curriculum should look like. That's where industry is going to struggle. That's where K through 12 is going to struggle because they don't know how to build cybersecurity curriculum, right? And that's where the stakeholders are kind of hitting a little bit of a bump in the road. You're literally giving us an easy button to start taking advantage of. You've built it. So I will be reaching out because we need to take advantage of that. What I do have a question for you, because it's not an easy road. This is years in the making that we've had to influence higher ed, had to influence K through 12, and had to influence the state of Rhode Island. This is years. How do we fast track that? Because we don't have years. Other states don't have years to make this up. How do we start having those conversations and break down those walls with educators quicker, right? And start putting that in front of them. That's a struggle because we need to do this quickly.
It is a struggle, right? And I always use the analogy, Rome wasn't built overnight, but we can draw some really fast plans to fast track that. I think, the point both of you all were making about bringing together the right people, bringing them together with no agendas, no egos, and to create an asset map of what your community has. Because I would be willing to bet that you have industry, higher ed, K-12, who are willing to do this, but they don't know what that first step is going to be. And that's what we provide. That's what services we provide. We provide the curriculum, we provide the professional development, but we also provide the consulting services to help communities build out that cyber plan, that plan of action that says, here is what we need to do. Here's the timeline that we need to do it. Here's how we crawl, walk, run. Well, sometimes we wish we could do it the other way. But this is how we can do that. And this is how we can create wins within the first 6 months. That's what we did in North Dakota. In North Dakota, it was the fastest rollout we have ever had. We went from 0 teachers in North Dakota teaching cyber to states adopting cybersecurity K-12 standards in 18 months. That's unheard of. That is absolutely unheard of. And what we can do is we have that success story and we've had that impact across the country. And Rhode Island, since we're talking about that, we have a great relationship with the Rhode Island STEM Center and Dr. Carol Garacheo, who is a tremendous friend of mine, a tremendous friend of cyber.org. And so work more than likely is being done in these states. It is just an advocate that we need, an individual or an organization to call a meeting and bring together stakeholders from education, K-12, stakeholders from higher ed, and if possible, stakeholders from city and state government. That is how you start. That is putting the key in the ignition, and let us do the work. Let us do the rest of the job to ensuring that these dots are getting connected and ensuring that we are creating direct impacts to the individuals that we need to be targeting, and that is at the K-12 level. Research has shown, the research that we've done, high schools who are teaching cyber.org's content and curriculum are sending 4 times as many students into a cyber-based degree program, and that is compared to high schools who are not using cyber.org's content and curriculum. 4x multiplier. What higher education institution is not going to be opening their eyes and starting to salivate over the fact that they could have 4 times as many students coming into their computer science programs? And then what does that mean for industry who is consuming those graduates who are graduating with those cyber degrees? And by graduating, I mean 2-year, 4-year, or certificate programs.
Yeah. No, that's great. Now, Kevin, typically, how do you see a program like this rolling out, right? Because we're having conversations at the Rhode Island Department of Ed level of core cybersecurity curriculum for all students, right? And then a focus area with a CTE program, a career and technical education program, much like the vocational programs of the past. Is that the typical rollout that you see to get students educated? How do you see that kind of going through fruition and getting it embedded in the curriculum of K through 12?
I think that is the playbook. And what we see as a primary successful model is when regions adopt a twofold approach. One is building foundational cyber literacy among all students. Second fold is building out a technical cybersecurity program that culminates in some kind of cybersecurity industry-based certification that allows students to become employable right after high school, or that they can pursue advanced degrees at the 2-year or 4-year level. We see in tandem these two platforms, these two focus areas working together by ensuring that we are raising the tide. Because if I went to a student and said, you should be a good cybersecurity pen tester, you should be a good cyber analyst, they're going to look at you and go, what in the world does that mean? When I would ask my students what they want to be when they grow up, they were like, I have no idea what all the options are. And so what we want to do is ensure that communities are starting with a baseline. Let's just build cyber literate students. And if we do that, no matter what career field they go into, what industry they go into, they're going to be cyber literate. And by raising that tide, we then start drilling down into who are the students who want to go into the technical programs. And so building this two-prong approach and having this model has been the most successful. And that's where we're starting to see the success in North Dakota, Virginia, Louisiana. It's that awareness pathway as well as the technical pathway.
That's so great to hear. That means we're on the right path here in Rhode Island. And honestly, it's great to see superintendents of schools and representatives from the Department of Education putting cyber literacy at the same level as financial literacy. That's what I've been experiencing over the last maybe 6 months or so, that they're having that in the same conversation. Not only do we need to make sure that our students have a level of financial literacy, but cyber literacy as well. That's how you know we're making an impact, because they're having it in the same conversation. So
I want to give credit to those individuals, those superintendents that have gotten it, that have taken the initiative to build out these cyber programs. But I want to provide a little bit of anecdote. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but I want to provide a little bit of realism to the monumental task we have in front of us. Cyber.org, we have impacted just over 3 million students, 3.5 million students in all 50 states. And some might say that's incredible, right? And I'm extremely proud of my team for creating that monumental impact. But to put it in perspective, there are 52 million students in the country.
Right.
Our work is just begun, and it's not going to be on the shoulders of just cyber.org. It's got to be on the shoulders of industry, of state government, of local government, of K-12 institutions, higher education institutions. Our work here has just begun.
Yeah. And this is where I wanted to make the quick analogy to the cyber literacy within our organizations, right? What we're doing at the K-12, we need to do within our standard businesses. Cybersecurity now is something people just need to understand, right? If we think about all the challenges around security training, security awareness programs, et cetera, that cyber literacy has a place in industry as well. And Kevin, before we let you go, I want to talk about how can organizations not only get engaged, but how can they also leverage the curriculum you've created to create that same cyber literacy within their organizations and help all people understand kind of the basics around cybersecurity?
Yeah, I don't think I have to tell this group of individuals the importance of having a cyber literate workforce that are on your payroll. The vulnerabilities that exist out there and the threats and the attacks that are taking place on you guys each and every day is unbelievable. And one of the things that I want to offer to you is any resources on the cyber.org webpage. We have cyber safety videos that talk about ransomware, that talk about malware, that talk about phishing attacks. We talk about online video call safety, what to put in the chat, what not to put in the chat, what to disclose in your chat rooms. These types of resources, while they are designed for K-12 educators, can be consumed by anybody. We have got an incredible partnership with one of the big airline companies in our country that has come to us for different cyber outreach activities. We've done many presentations where we've showed them the importance of encryption and decryption. We've talked to them about phishing attacks and how they have crippled different organizations by folks clicking on the wrong email link. So we're happy to provide activities and resources that we put in the K-12 classroom to those industries and in our community, because we have to have a cyber literate population. And if I think about, a leaky dam analogy, we've got to not only figure out what to do with the inflow of workforce, but we also have to plug the holes within our organizations to ensuring that our employees are cyber literate and cyber safe.
Yeah. You've got such a great library of curriculum out there. I think organizations that want to use that material to create that initial cyber literacy is a huge opportunity. Kevin, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
Matt, it's always great to see you. Thank you for the opportunity to spend the first 30 minutes with you guys. And I really do look forward to being a resource for your audience. So cyber.org is our name. Cyber.org is our website. Very easy to remember.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.